Namaste and welcome. Today is an auspicious day because it is Baisakhi, it is the Tamil New Year, and we have with us here the family of Dr. Rakesh Popli, the man who made Ekal happen. Dr. Rakesh Popli, after finishing his PhD from the United States, went back to India, went back as a professor at IIT Kanpur and later at BIT Mesra, and experimented with education in the rural villages. He came up after those experiments with this beautiful concept of the single teacher school, which became Ekal Vidyalaya, which is now in over 80,000 villages at this current time. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Abhimanyu Popli, Shivaranjani Popli, and of course, the pioneer who made Ekal happen, Srimati Rama Popli. For all of you,
Namaste.
namaste and welcome.
Yes.
Namaste.
It,
Namaste.
it, it is such a pleasure to have you all with us because we in the United States have been supporting Ekal Vidyalaya for now over 20 years, actually 23 now. It is 2023. In 2000, Ekal came here, and we have been very actively engaged in this. And yet, we have not quite met those pioneers that made all of this happen. So, Dr. Maybe I will start. I know that Dr. Abhimanyu Popli and Shivaranjani Popli are actually first students of this experiment because Rakesh ji actually had a on-campus small school called Kisalaya where he was experimenting with the education along with the real experiments that happened in the villages. And I know that you both are students, first students of his experiment. But let me turn it over to you, Ramaji. Could you describe that early experiments? How did this happen to be? How did he take this concept and make these one teacher schools happen?
In fact, he had this thing in his mind when he was going for US that time that he will do something for his country. But when he went to US, he was also keen to study the education system of United States. There he learned about one teacher concept. He studied it and he learned the reasons why it did not succeed in US. And that was very much in his mind when he came back to India. And he visited many places in India. Dr. Jayaprakash ji's Ratri Pathshala, Charavaha Pathshala, Bunyadi Shiksha of Bapuji, and also the Shri Arbindo's education system. He studied all of them and also the Kerala Sahitya Parishad experiments. So this all, after having all this, we sat in one place and we selected few things that may be useful for our Indian situation. And just at that time, we started the Pragya Poshan concept, which was sponsored by DST. And there we worked with the senior children, class 7 to 10 and 11. And there we realized if we start our work with the junior children, maybe we will give much better and prolonged results.
Yeah.
This is how we turned ourselves to the 6 to 14 age group, and then later the Bal Shiksha and also the girls' education. So this is how the whole thing started.
Whole thing started. So when you came up with the idea, right, finally after looking at many different models, where did you start the first schools in
In
India?
fact, when it so happened in 1982, Dr. Popli and Dr. Mahesh Sharma met. Dr. Mahesh Sharma was doing his PhD at time, and Dr. Popli was professor at IIT Kanpur. They all sat at IIT campus itself, and there they uh, decided that they will do something because both wanted to work, and they both worked to Annaji's village also. And there, since his area of research was artisans, and Dr. Popli was always, he was a very brilliant student. And in fact, in 1968, he came first in CBSC board, higher secondary board of Delhi.
Wow.
So and his family was a very educated and learned family. So that motivation was there, and he realized is through the education that we can change our future. So he was more interested in education, and Dr. Sharma was more interested in artisans. Dr. Mahesh Sharma was more interested in energy. He was doing his research in energy. And then uh, Ashok Bhagat, Ashok Rai, he changed his surname to Bhagat, being inspired. So he was more interested in village work and the agriculture thing. So these four people sat together and decided to really develop the village, the ideal village. So this is how the whole thing started in 82 itself.
In 82.
So
And it started in
Dr.
Bishnupur, is that right? Is that the first?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, definitely.
Yeah,
Everything started at Bishanpur. But
Bishnupur.
Rakesh, since he was PhD, and Dr. Pandey, who was the Vice Chancellor and Director of BIT Mesra, he immediately invited Dr. Popli to be a faculty at BIT Mesra. But
Ah,
he was offered a very good quarter at BIT campus. But we preferred to stay at the village because we wanted to really realize their situation, live in their situation, live like them. Then only we could develop this system. We cannot develop this system staying apart. So we became part of their life, and then only we can really develop this.
wow. So, Ramaji, you were newly married and you were staying in the village, in the rural village for how many years?
Almost, in fact, I went there 83 September, and we came out, um, I think, August 88.
Wow, wow. And it was not the time that everything was available. So it must have been quite a interesting experience for you to live in.
Yeah, I remember very interesting episode. One day someone said we shifted to a new place, which was ना मुर्गी का बाड़ा कहते हैं ना उसको, मुर्गी का दबड़ा था वो, तो उसको कन्वर्ट किया गया था. तो what happened कि someone said अरे अरे यहाँ मत रहिए, यहाँ भूत रहते हैं. तो Dr. Popli immediately said, no problem, you will have friends when I am not here.
Company, you will have company.
That sounds fantastic. So Abhimanyu
So
and Shivaranjani, I'd like to talk to you. You were the first students of this experiment, and we always have seen how very innovative this program has been. Whenever I visited Ekal schools, whenever I saw Kisalaya school, I visited with Ramaji. It was very very innovative. So what do you think? How? And I know that it's primary school, so you did your primary education in the Kisalaya model, and then went on to a mainstream school. So I'd love to know from your experience, and now Dr. Popli, you have done your PhD in telecommunication and you're working in that at IIT Delhi and working in that area. And Shivaranjani, you have done your electrical engineering masters from IIT Kanpur. So you've done very, very advanced academic studying. How do you think what you got from that Kisalaya model has affected your education?
So, Kisle model was instrumental in teaching us how to keep originality and how to think out of box and how to work creatively. And these are some of the things which the Kisle model has taught us.
Uh-huh. Was,
So,
was there
for
an
example,
example that you
yeah.
can tell us?
So for example, as soon as I shifted to a new school, and there were so many kids, and like in a Hindi class, I remember the teacher taught us. I mean, in those days, and I believe till now also, the education model in India is rote learning, rote learning. Whatever the teacher teaches, you just have to mug it up and write it exactly like that. So I remember an incident when the teacher asked about the question what, and everyone wrote why because she had narrated the answer for why in the class. So I was the only one in that class who answered the question what, which was actually asked.
Most
So
interesting thinking, right? Thinking is
yeah,
not something that's yeah.
that is the thing, and I think even in my research, uh, I, I, I actually the topic of my thesis was not telematics. It was related to speech recognition, the artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So um, uh, I took pride in my language, and our language, the Indian languages, are very phonetic and very scientific. So how do we have an application of that. I mean, how does it apply in the present day artificial intelligence and correct recognition of speech? So in that sense, I also I mean, I want to mention that I'm also granted a US patent. So I think I learned to think originally, and I learned to think without any biases.